Hello everybody and welcome to EME6507, uploading or accessing your server space. In this video I'm going to walk through setting up a site in Dreamweaver for the first portion. Then I'm going to delete that and walk through the same process for FileZilla. So the first half, if you're using Dreamweaver, or the first portion, then you'll follow along with that, and then in the second portion we will actually walk through FileZilla. So if you're using Composer or InView or something like that, then you can use that as your file transfer tool to get your website pages and files and folders up on the web and then access them. So what I've done here is I have the files window viewable. And the reason I have this viewable is it's going to allow me to kind of see where things are going and access files a lot easier than if it were closed. I also have created a file on my desktop called EME6507. Y'all can't see it, but it's there. And I'm going to use that as my root folder. And what my root folder is that's the folder that everything's going to go into so that all of my sites are differentiated on my server space. So if I just put the EP as if I define my ePortfolio as my root folder, it's going to be problematic when I start trying to add in other sites. So this is sort of a shell folder that's going to house all of my individual sites. So in this course, your multimedia shell and ultimately your multimedia project and then your ePortfolio are going to both go in this EME6507 folder. And this will make more sense once we kind of look at it online. So I'm going to click here, and if I have manage sites here, and that's what I want to use, or if I go up to the top, there is a site button, and I can click new site, manage sites, whatever. I'm just going to click new site to get going. And then I want to name this something that makes sense to me. So I'm just going to call it EME6507. And then it says the local site folder. And this is, like I said, my local root. So I'm going to go to that EME6507. So I'm going to go to my desktop here. And select EME6507 as my root. And right now I just have the webinar sample web page that we worked on in the initial webinar. Now I could click save here, but I haven't defined my server, so I'm going to click on servers and then I'm going to add a new server. So again, the server name doesn't really matter, just something that makes sense to me. I'm going to connect using FTP, and then my FTP address is just going to be this site, rhartshorn.com. Then I'm going to set up my username, and your username is whatever you sent me. I've set up a username called EME6507. So I have to add the @rhartshorn.com to whatever you sent. So in this case, it's EME6507 @rhartshorn.com. And then the password is just whatever your password is. Now, a number of you didn't submit a password that met the security threshold of the server company. So I had to modify those, and those modifications are listed in the feedback for the username password assignment. Then I'm just going to test this real quick, and it says access connected, so I'm okay. And then I'm just going to click save. So now I have my nice little server set up here, and I see that my files changed because now it's giving me all of these options here. So first I have EME6507 sample, and that is just the content in that EME6507 folder. So if I actually click on it here, I see that it has the webinar sample in it. Then I have local view, I have remote server, I have testing server, so if I didn't actually want it to go live, I could test it before making it live. Remote server is just gonna, I'll talk about that in a minute. Then I have this connect to the remote server, so right now it's unplugged, but we want it plugged. I can sync or refresh. I can download, get files from the remote server. I can upload, putting files to the remote server, and then here's my sync. I'm sorry. So right now I'm in my local view, and let's say that I'm working on Dreamweaver on my desktop. Okay, so I want to simply go to my local view, and then I would link the two by clicking on the connecting icon. and then I would simply click on Put Files to my remote server. Now, in this case, I haven't uploaded anything to my server yet, so it's posting everything there. So what I would do is put the entire site. But let's say that next week I went and I've just changed the FTP page. Well, I don't have to re-upload my entire site, and it's not a big deal in this case because the site isn't very large file size wise and it's not going to take a lot of time. But if I had a huge website that had a lot of graphics and maybe videos and things like that, then that would be waiting for it to re-upload might be problematic. So here I'm just clicking on FTP and then I would just hit upload. Dependent files would be like anything, like any videos or any changes there. I would say yes here. And so, and I changed that. Now, alternatively, if I'm at a computer lab or something like that and they have Dreamweaver, see, I see here on my remote server, see how I put in the webinar sample there. So this is my remote server. Let's say I'm working on one of the pages in the lab, but I don't have a flash drive. I could email it to myself or whatever, but maybe I worked on the entire site, so it's kind of a pain. I can actually click on this when I get home and download it from the remote server to my desktop, to my local root folders, and this would automatically go into my EME6507 webinar sample folder. So that's all we have to do to set up our site, and now I don't have to redo this every time I every time I make changes to my website. And I come in, I want to add pages, delete pages, edit pages, then I just simply click on my main page. Let me go back to my local view. So I would just click on my main and then upload all of the changes that I made. Or if I added a new ePortfolio folder, for example, then I would, let me just do that real quick. New folder, ePort. I'm not going to put any files in it. So I've added an ePortfolio folder there. Click on this and boom. Okay, of course it didn't do it. Well, if I added, there we go. Okay, so it is there now. So now I have that ePortfolio. Obviously there's no content in it, but that you get the gist of that. Now let's find our web page. So I'm going to pull up Firefox here. And your base URL is always going to be rhartshorn.com/summer-2013 /your username, which in this case is EME6507. Then it's going to move out. Each folder is going to be a slash and separated by a slash until you get to your name. So if we even look at this on the server, my main site is rhartshorn.com. There's a folder called Summer 2013, and then in that there's a folder called EME6507, and that's for my particular username that I have set up. There's a user called EME6507, and then the folder there is webinar sample, and then I want to get to the page index.html. I click on that, and then I see here that my main page came up. So your URLs and web addresses that you submit to me are always going to start out rhartshorn.com/summer-2013, always, followed by your username, then most likely another folder name, and then probably a main page. So that's all we have to do for setting up the site in Dreamweaver. So I'm going to go ahead real quickly and delete these. Actually, I'm not going to delete them from the local view. Let me just close out Dreamweaver. And I'm going to open up FileZilla. Close your eyes for a second. I'm just going to delete these so we can do the process here. So I'm going to open up FileZilla. So now we're going to walk through how we would do this in FileZilla. And FileZilla is really easy as well. here I have all of my local information. So I have my all of the stuff on my desktop and all that. And I can go down here and play around with those. But what I want to do, let me move this over a little bit. Now it's a little bit different here because there's no need for the root folder. So I'm going to log into my host as rhartshorn.com. My username is EME6507 at rhartshorn.com, and then my password is Gator. No, I'm not going to tell you what my password is. And so I'm going to quick connect here, and I'm logged in. So now all I want to do here is, instead of dragging in 6507, which I could do, it's just going to add a layer of files. I just want to drag in both of my folders here. So I'm going to drag in, hold ePort and hold webinar sample, and I'm going to drag it, just drag them in, and I see the two there. Sometimes I'll get a plus sign or something like that. So I can also pull them up over here and then just drag from these particular windows as well. So I could go to users, see Heart Show, desktop, and I could drag those in from there as well. So what I like about FileZilla is I get to see my local site in folders and then my remote site in folders. So if I click in my webinar thing, I still get the same thing: webinar sample, FTP, authoring, and then index. So all of this first part here, the remote site, the part before this slash is going to be the rhartshorn.com/summer2013 / your username, and then it's going to be webinar sample, and then if I want, then / index.html. So I've uploaded everything here. I have in my main folder ePort and webinar sample. So if I pull up the website, the web, it's rhartshorn.com/summer2013 /EME6507. We'll go to FTP this time, just so you kind of webinar-sample /ftp.html. And we didn't finish making the changes, but there's my webinar.html tool. Let's go to authoring just so you can kind of see that it's there as well. And this is the one that we actually did. So that's all there is to it. We will walk through this in the webinar today. We'll actually create the site in Composer in the webinar this evening. But I wanted to provide this video to walk you through all of this. There's also a handout which will also be linked as a separate link in week 1 materials as well. I hope this was useful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me, and have a great week.